Professor Dyson, your reaction.
Yeah, well, I agree with Reverend Sharpton that it is certainly disappointing in the sense that the judge did not give the full extent of punishment to Mr. Chauvin, but he certainly did suggest that this sentence would be adjudicated according to rational principles and defensible legal ideals and not emotion. You know what strikes me, though, Ms. Nicole, is the fact that Black people have to bear the brunt of white rage, of white hostility. I myself, the other day, let me apologize on this program. I was trying to be cute and clever when I was talking about MAGA, therefore maggots, not maggots. I didn't anticipate that, brothers and sisters who were white would hear it as that. So I deeply and profoundly apologize for that. But I have been hit with an onslaught of death threats and being called the N-word out of white rage for a mistake I made, for which I'm willing to apologize, certainly. And what Black people are often up against is the fact that we have to be told that emotion will not judge, will not lead our offering of justice to you. Emotion will not drive, or a statement to be made to the American public will not drive what we do legally. And yet so much emotion is directed at us. So much hatred is directed at us. So much white rage is directed at us. And when it comes time to reciprocate, I'm not suggesting that the legal system should offer an emotional, empathetic ruling. I'm saying that law itself can justifiably support African-American interests and Black people's interests in this case without being said to have been an emotional decision. No, we're not going to have emotion, or we're not going to have the heartfelt stuff. We're going to stick to the principles and the rules. That bifurcation, that juxtaposition between rationality and emotionality is what often damns Black people in this country. And so the white rage and hate is allowed to operate at its height while Black people's justice seems to be subverted. I am gratified that the judge did not merely slap him on the wrist, did not give the minimal that was being asked, and found himself somewhere in the middle of that. But I don't think we can dismiss the other implications about rationality and emotionality that Black people are often tagged with.
I just want to ask you, because I know from your appearances, people, what you say has such resonance and it's widely circulated. If people are looking to you as a bellwether for how to feel, I mean, let's stick with the emotion. How should they feel today?
Well, look, they should feel torn. They should feel sad. They should feel grief-stricken that a Black man lost his life and that his life has been judged to be worth about 22 and a half years. They should be saddened by the fact that the recurrence of Black death, the trauma of the repeat of Black death, has to exist at such a heightened level for even the minimal principles of justice to be applied. So that's sad. On the other hand, they should feel more determined than ever to move forward. This decision, while not at the top level of full execution of justice in behalf of George Floyd, in the eyes of his family and other supporters, is at least a step in the right direction. And so we can't have perfection. We can't have the ideal, but we can strive for the perfection and ideal of American society and democracy, and for justice to be done in this society. So we should feel torn, we should feel grief-stricken, but we should also feel hopeful that what we do here today, what we do out in the streets, what we do in the courtrooms must continue, that many of our ancestors got far worse news than we have ever received. And so we must not get down into what John Bunyan called the slough of despond. We shouldn't be depressed. Sad, yes. Grief-stricken, yes, but not depressed, and determined to keep moving forward in the name of George Floyd and the larger push for justice in this nation.
I was thinking, as the rep was talking about the family coming out, the family has been so generous with their willingness to be public, to grieve in public, including, his daughter, who has become a part of this president. President Biden met her. He talks about her when he talks about the need for the George Floyd Police Reform Act. I wonder if you could just say something about what this family has given. I mean, this movement is the George Floyd movement. The proposed legislation is the George Floyd legislation. And when you're talking about how people should feel and what they should do next, it is because of this family's willingness to grieve publicly and to speak out and to be part of this movement.
Yeah, I'm so glad you emphasized that, Nicole. Look at the dignity. Look at the eloquence. Look at the plain-spoken honesty. Look at the beauty of spirit that those people exhibited today. Look at his daughter. Look at his brother and brothers. Look at his family members. They were so well composed, crying, grieving, but nonetheless standing up in the face of such brutal disregard for their brother's life. And the reminder of that, and hearing his mother, God bless her, that is Mr. Chauvin's mother, say that she would not be able to talk to him and speak to him as she wanted, and that she would stay strong. And we cannot begrudge her a moment's expression of that. It would have been good had she expressed some sympathy and empathy for the family that lost their loved one, to reach out to them and say, look, I know that my inability to speak to my son for 20 years, or I'll speak to him, but not freely, pales in comparison to those who've lost their loved ones. And so that family showed to us, the Floyd family, the dignity in the face of hurt and pain and trauma, and what it means to be Black people who have been called upon time and time again to serve this nation, to save this nation, and to continue to show it the way toward the ideals it says it embraces: democracy, freedom, justice, but especially truth. And so they have given the last ounce and measure of sacrifice by their loved one, losing his life for the world to see, and then sharing that sacrifice with the rest of us. They weren't begrudging others who used George Floyd's dead body as a living call for justice in this nation. They were willing to share their loved one in the large geography of grief and death, so that a greater cause could be served, and that a greater witness to truth could be made. They are remarkable human beings, but you can imagine the trauma of death, the loss of their loved one, a little girl whose father will never be able to share with her each night, is an incalculable loss.